Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and that cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concertsthatmadeus.com.
Chris, you're very welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, man.
It's great to have you now. I'm looking forward to diving into your music over the next bit. So, Ronin released Valak The Defiler back in September. It's a great album. It has many different styles within it. Can you tell us all the details? Spill the beans.
Definitely, and I feel like it's hard to find on the album that has those different styles, and that by design for the most part. I like to kind of just play what comes to us, and we workshop the song there, but we're really proud of one, and we built off our first album for sure to try to just showcase different styles that are in us. We like to say that we're really any sort of subgenre, because there's millions of in rock music, especially metal. It's like people go on and on. It's makes you dizzy sometimes with the different subgenres people come up with. So we're not really obsessed with that, but we like rock music, playing all different styles of rock music, even if it's the softer sort of melody stuff, and then sometimes a little more heavier, screamy stuff we like to kind of dive into. So yeah, we're really happy with Valak the way it came out. We're looking forward to more people hearing it, and hopefully more people appreciate, you said, the different styles and offerings that the album has. So it's not like, you're listening, it's like, oh, well, like 4 or 5 songs sounded very much the same, like structure, same vibe. It's like we kind of pride ourselves on, little samplings of rock music here and there.
I get you. And when it came to, writing the songs, everything, where did the inspiration come from?
Well, the songs we had in the bank, like loose structures of it, left over from my first album sessions, because initially we would do 10 songs, but then we got into the studio and we're like, all right, we kind of ran out of money here. We kind of mapped out like, all right, well, we have so many hours that we could log, so we got to get the songs down. So we just picked 8 that we knew the best, because we really had 10 of them. But we're like, all right, we 8 the best, let's record those. So like 2 holdovers, Valhalla and Valak, the title track, were both holdovers from the first album, and we decided to kind of build it all around this Valak idea, which came to me some random night. I was watching I think it was the Conjuring movies with my wife, and then it's just a line that's like the chick in the movie goes, "Oh my God, you're Valak the Defiler." I was kind of perked up. I was like, that sounds cool. So I put it down, or I texted it to myself, notes, writing it down. No one writes anything anymore. But so put it in my notes, and I kind of logged it away and looked, what Valak was all about. So, wrote the lyrics around that song and married it with some riffs that I had, and then brought it to the band, and we sort of fleshed it out. And the same goes with the rest of the songs. The one song, Monster, which our lead guitarist, Jack, takes lead vocal on that one, because we're pretty fortunate in the band. We have him. He's a really vocalist. He went to school for voice. But to have him on the back burner and to be able to add harmonies and stuff. So he brought that song to us. And our bassist, Bo, our newest member, brought the song Hatred's Mate to the band. And, we retooled lyrics and around a little bit with the structure. And we were able to flesh that one out. But for the most part, we just play, like I said earlier, like what comes to us. And a lot of times I'll have lyrics from like years ago, like even when I was in college, like I took some workshops, and I'll look at those for inspiration and be like, oh, that kind of sounds like similar to the mood of these riffs that we had. Try to build a song around that, and That's like another thing. Like, there's no one way that we make a song. Like, sometimes it's with just like a jam, and we're, all right, that sounded cool. We'll add lyrics to it later, or sometimes we'll start with lyrics or a vocal melody and build from there. So we try to attack it from all different ways, and the songs are, I think, better for it. There's not like one formula that kind of works for us.
Yeah, yeah. Geez, that's handy. It works out like that. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it comes together nicely, and other times it's a little bit more labor. You know?
I can imagine. Yeah. And how does the finished version hold up to the original concept? Did it change much over the production?
For the most part, I feel like it's like half and half. Like, half of the songs like were pretty much the same in the studio, that we sort of envisioned. Like songs like Hatred's Mate, um, and songs like Saturn's Portal, that was our lead single. The difference with Saturn's Portal is like we kind of chopped down the ending a little bit. We had it a little more extended with that solo section. Our engineer, Frank Matiratona, at Voodoo Studios, he was phenomenal. Like, he had such a good ear. Like, oh, maybe we shouldn't repeat this again. Like, let's cut this down. Let's like try a different chord here or there. He was a big part of some songs changing. One song in particular that really transformed in the studio, I think, was Uphill, which is this song off the album. And that song was it was kind of a beast. It's like it's a different time signature than we used to. Like, we were playing around with some like, it was very Mastodon inspired, like some riffs in there in sections, and there was some like heavier vocals in the song. So like, just having him around to be like, all right, maybe instead of repeating this section, have the chorus double at the end, and then we decided on a breakdown at the end of the song to make the outro and repeating the chorus again, for variety's sake. So not just like, all right, verse chorus, solo chorus. We're pretty standard. So yeah, like, some of the songs definitely changed, but as far as getting up to the idea, I think most of them exceeded, if not matched, because it's that editing process that's so important, and I feel like a lot of bands, even us with our first album, definitely struggle with. It's hard to edit your own stuff because it's your song. It's like, no, I want this section to be 9.5 minutes because it's such a cool riff. You can't do that. Some bands can, but we don't have the legacy. We can't afford to do that. Like, people be like, yeah, I'll listen to 10 minutes of this. Like, from a no-name band, it's like, all right. Game theater, where it's like, okay, they can put a 15-minute song together. So yeah, I think the songs definitely stand up to or exceed the ideas that we had going in.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to ask, when it comes to making new music, then what's your favorite part? And then the flip side, what part do you absolutely dread doing?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think just the birth of the song, sort of like that initial creative spark, especially when you bring something to the band. I mean, that's like a love-hate, because like, when you come up with something yourself and then you bring it to the band and you're like, are they gonna like it? Are they gonna are they gonna crap all over it? Are they gonna be like, yo, what is, like, this is good, like, this is not great. But just that initial sort of spark, you find the inspiration, or I'm just noodling around on the guitar and I find a cool riff. I'm like, that's kind of cool. And then trying to find, that riff connects with, to build to a chorus, or how do you build a verse? So like, how can I transform this riff to a different, like, part of the neck guitar to like bring a different sound about? Because we're very riff oriented. We like to kind of build, like, find like a riff we really like. We try to find different parts on the guitar and different voicings where it'll sound different, but it's the similar structure. To keep that consistency through the song, to get that earworm thing. But as like, maybe what's hardest, or what I don't like the most, is when you get toward the end of the process, and I always have fear of like getting sick of the song, where it's like, or I to sort of like, oh man, we've been working on these songs for 10 months, but I have like all these other riffs I want to start working on. So it's a little bit of a cop-out answer, but I think like, when you get to the end of the process, even like when it comes time to release, like, so excited for these songs to get out, but like the creative part of us is like, oh man, we have all these other ideas to get moving on, but it's like, no, we have to give the songs that we just recorded the respect that they're due. So it's sort of like that impatience that comes along at the end of the process.
Yeah, the creative itch.
Oh yeah, and you can scratch it. It seems.
Yeah, yeah. How long do you wait then to start working on new music after the release?
I mean, all are always like coming up with ideas. Like, and I always, like a riff bank, on like my voice memos. Even some of them are just like my voice doing a riff, like and then I'll listen back and be like, "What the hell was that?" How am I supposed to translate? Like, but yeah, like we're always writing, but we've discussed it at lead up for this release. Like, let's not consciously work together on material until the album's been out for a little while, and we've given it like some backing. Going up to Canada the beginning of November to open for another band who's there doing their release. So we're playing in Ottawa and Montreal. We want to make sure like we play like give it the support it's due, both like social media and stuff, pushing it that way, but also with shows and making sure it has time to kind of breathe and on a life of its own before we undercut it with other music. And it's like the financial thing, getting back into the studio. Like, let's give ourselves like a year or two before we jump in on that again. Some more money in the bank because the 8-song structure seems to work for us in the studio. So if we can come up with 8 more songs and then we could structure our studio time the same we did with the other 2 albums, that'll help. But giving this more time, I think is definitely very important. So, but to close out the answer to a very long-winded answer, we're always writing, always trying to like come up with new riffs on our own. But collectively, we want to give ourselves definitely a little time, maybe like 6 months. We'll dive in. We'll see what's going on. Like if we can get more shows out of state and like little mini weekers and little mini tours, then that'll push off the recording process even further, which is it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. You can't complain about that.
No way.
Yeah, and after the release of your 2021 self-titled album, you guys went on a bit of a tour. You played the tri-state area and quickly were noticed by Pavement Entertainment. Can you walk us through that period?
Yeah, I mean, that was exciting, and obviously coming, we were still in COVID, but sort of coming out of it, and because that definitely put the brake on us, but it allowed us to record that album. We're able to go in and like take time. We're like, all right, we have nothing else to do, so let's just these 8 songs out and see what happens. And in hindsight, it was a little bit of a mistake to release it before showing the album around to potential labels and stuff like that. And Pavement even said as much. We sent out a bunch of cold emails asking if anyone wanted to work with us on a single and stuff like that. And they basically outrightly said like, oh man, it's a shame you guys didn't come to us with the album before release. Like we could have definitely worked better for you guys, but we ended up working one of our songs, Temptress, with them that they really liked and thought had a really good show on radio. And it wound up doing really good radio. We wound up getting, I think, to 3rd on the top 40 rock songs on the Billboard charts. Great. We were up there with other bands like Roach. Like we're wrestling fans over here. So like Chris Jericho was up there. Well, we wanted to like send him a tweet and be like, "Oh, what's up, Ozzy? Like, we're nipping at your heels." Obviously we didn't do that. Don't be jerks about it, but they were really into what we were doing, and we were able to work that song for like 16 weeks on Spotify and on radio. Able to rack up a lot of like streams. We're very, we can go one way or the other when it comes to streaming. It's wonderful, that outlet and that access to like the world basically with your music, but it's like kind of a crapshoot sometimes. You're not sure how to, how to leverage those metrics on Spotify. You turn like, oh wow, we streamed song Tempter streamed 125,000 times. All right, but now what? Like, how do you, like, does that matter to people? Hard to tell sometimes. But we were able to do very well with, and then when that campaign ended, they said, listen, when you guys have more music, send it our way and work it out. And then, we came up with the demos for Valak, the Defiler album, and they liked it. And they said, when you guys have the final revisions, let us know and we'll work this thing. So, it worked out well for us. And 2021 was a good year for us, linking up with them. And then we got to play with a pretty big metal band, Accept, which was great. That was probably our best show to date. Actually, just the size of the crowd. That was a great opportunity.
Ah. And I suppose at this stage, so we'll dive into your influences, your early memories, to give the listeners a sense of where you come from. So if you can you remember your earliest musical memory?
Honestly, it's probably something music wise from my father. When you grow up, like your parents, at least in the generation I grew up, they were listening to, there was a lot of classic rock. It was like Billy Joel, especially if we're from Long Island, New York. So Billy Joel, we listened to like Elton John, but like I can remember really latching on to some country music, guys like George Strait, even Garth Brooks, Al Jackson were pretty big. Like I'm talking like when I was like probably 6 or 7. And then when I was like 8 or 9, I remember being introduced to Creed, which, people like to Creed, but listen, when I heard them when I was like 8 years old, when Clay came out, I remember hearing songs "What If" and "Wrong Way," and just being like, this is pretty great. They had their "With Arms Wide Open," they had Fire, they had those hits off the album. I always be like, this is pretty rock. And then, Creed was basically like my sort of gateway drug into like rock and music. And then next, it was Metallica. Probably like 2001. I was like 11 or 12. Me and my cousin pretty always listened to music together, and they came out. So like the deal was that we would do chores pretty much in our respective homes, up enough money to try to buy all their albums together collectively. So go to Best Buy or the heck was the name of the store in our mall? It was FYE, or they Tower Records. They used to have, like, we would go to CD shops to buy CDs, and we built up enough money, bought like the Reload album, and my cousin got It's Lightning and Justice, and of course the Black album we had, and we would just listen to those religiously. So like they were a huge influence. Alice in Chains came shortly after. Love Alice in Chains, especially the Unplugged performance that they did on MTV. And then more like my bands, which it's weird to say that they're like 25 years old at this point, but like Avenged Sevenfold was huge. I remember hearing them in 2003, oddly enough, on a Madden NFL football game soundtrack for like P2 or something like that. I remember hearing a song off Waking the Fallen, Chapter 4. I remember hearing that, being like, what the hell is this? Like, this is awesome. And it was like a little bit heavier than what I was used to. And then, throughout the years, then I got turned on Mastodon, other bands, Alter Bridge, which is basically Creed with Miles Kennedy, which was, I remember being so opposed as a kid when I first heard Alter Bridge. I'm like, no, I'm a Creed guy. Like, no. And then I like do a few of the songs. I'm like, this is awesome. I've seen that concert like a dozen times. So like, and then like other bands like Beat. I remember seeing Open Metallica in like 2009 at Square Garden and being like, yo, what's this? Like this rockabilly metal, like what a unique like Elvis voice this guy has. I was like, this is cool. They had some like sounding songs with like 60s sort of chord progressions. I'm like, this is good. I'm like, this is really cool too. So those are like a lot of like my specific interests. The band has different eclectic influences that all sort of come together. Like our drummer loves Rush, Muse, lead guitarist loves like Jim Croce. He loves sorts of like it's hard to nail his style down. He loves so many things. And our bassist loves like System of a Down. He loves Jaco Pastorius. He's like 10 years younger than us. He's 24. He has a lot of like more youthful energy. He's Midwestern emo. When he says, I'm like, what does that mean? Like, anybody who plays sad riff and then it turns into like a really heavy aggressive. I'm like, all right, that sounds like Ian from like 2003, 2004. That's a different name. But yeah, those are like a lot of the influences. Big ones are probably like Metallica, Avenged. Muse is definitely in there. We try to incorporate them. Even some Tool. Sometimes like vocals on some songs. Maynard has such a cool delivery, so it's like it's nice to try to incorporate some of the style. Alice in Chains, like probably the top 5.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Good mix there. And can you pinpoint the exact moment that made you want to become a musician?
Probably. And unfortunately, I didn't capitalize on it for some years after sort of kind of got the itch. Because I've always sung in chorus and stuff in high school and choir. But it was like a football Sunday, and I went with my father to his friend Johnny's house. And in between the games, they put on there was a Metallica Live DVD set. And it was the 1992, I think it was San Diego show. And I remember seeing, it was James and Lars, they were doing like like a drum battle for like 10 minutes. And I remember just being like, just like mesmerized as an 11-year-old, being like, what the hell is this? I'm like, this is so cool. And like, just seeing like the adoration that they had, like sort of the ferocity. And, it was very impressionable time as an 11-year-old. Seeing that, I'm like, I would love to do that day. And then like I really got into singing after that, but I wouldn't pick up guitar. I'm like ashamed to say until I was like 5. I tried it like 17, 18, and I was such a coward. I quit after about 2 months. I was trying to do bar chords, and I was just like, about other things. I wasn't focusing on guitar. Always a huge regret. I always say late to the party, but try to be the life of the party. So even though I got the late start, trying to make the most of it. I think that was probably when I got the bug, where I saw like Robinson was like, wow, like I need to do something like this. I'm like, either that to be a professional wrestler. So it's one of the
two interesting career choices anyway.
Yeah, pretty similar lifestyles, definitely.
Yeah. And, as a concert goer then, what concerts would you say have made you?
Well, I've seen bands like Avenged, Alter Bridge, Metallica, probably like almost a dozen times each. Me and my cousin recently went at MetLife Stadium in New York, or New Jersey, I should say, on the Metallica M72 tour. So we got to see Pantera, like the tribute version, but still cool seeing Phil and Rex up there and, playing with Zach. And the band has been so good. That's recent, like where I was like, I got like weirdly emotional, like me and my cousin a bit, because, we were always like to Pantera, but they were never our top band. But I can remember, I think it was 2004 when Dime got, I think it was 2004. With Damage Plan, and I remember that happening. It like didn't affect us, but then you kind of think about the camaraderie of those guys, like how much it probably affected them. So like seeing them live was such a cool experience, because we never got to see them when they were proper. So that was really cool. But probably the first time I saw Metallica at Madison Square Garden, we were like right up against the railing. There was these 4 guys in front of us, and they brought like this giant France magnetic sign from that tour, and one of the French guys was like 7 foot tall, so we kept having to hold this down. I'm like, when you hold that up, and no one can see. I'm like, can you just over the railing? And he was like, oh, okay, and let him do that. But I'll never forget that. That was a great experience. It was tiring. It was very tiring. The only other time I was probably more tired, to Heavy Montreal up in Canada in 2014. I think Slayer played, Offspring, Metallica was there, Dropkick Murphy. So we got for like 13 hours out in a field, 50,000 people. Tiring. I remember afterwards, like, and of course, we're out of the country. So none of us thought about like getting cell phone plans so they could work. we all got scattered after the concert. We couldn't find each other. Like we just ended up all meeting at the gate. Like there was like 9 of us, and I remember being like, "How did we find each other?" Like that was, and like, why did we separate? What is wrong with us? But into war, there were times like the pit was pushing us around, and just like it was like Gladiator with Russell Crowe. Like we all just linked. We were like as one, as one. Like we were just getting thrown around. It was that was a wild concert. So concerts like that, and I love music. I love live music. I'll see anything live. Like I've seen Maroon 5 live. Back in the day, I've seen Michael Bublé. Was like a Frank Sinatra type singer. I just love live music, and especially seeing good music that's live and tell like the performer putting their all into it. When you can get chills, like that's something that's hard to replicate outside of that sort of music thing. So, but like, yeah, probably like that first Metallica, especially Heavy Montreal, because that I'll never forget. Just being like beaten for 13 hours was quite an experience. I was like, I don't know if this again. I'm like, I don't know if my, but those were great concerts.
Sounds it. Jeez. And your own gigs then, for any listeners that haven't caught one of them, give them the full experience if you can. What can they expect?
I mean, see, whether it's we have a 30-minute set or luckily sometimes we have an hour set. I mean, we're gonna give you energy. We're gonna give our all, and like that's one thing we like to do. We like to do a lot of crowd work. Like I like to talk to the crowd. I like to, we like to show our personalities on stage. We like to move around. Because there's nothing worse than because sometimes the music could be like amazing, but sometimes it just look like the performers are having a great time. Especially if it's like more intricate. I understand, like you have to concentrate. Sometimes it's like, when the people on stage are super into it and the energy, the crowd feeds off on that. And but by design, it's like, all right, I'll give you energy. You got to give us energy back. And like people respond to that. I know I do. See on stage, even bands like I'm not familiar with, like they're going for it, even if like the notes here there, it's like the performance you're looking for, so it's pretty much what we try to live by, is like try to give you the best show we possibly can. We sprinkle a few covers in there for good measure to kind of people who aren't familiar with us can at least get into it and be like, oh wow, they played that cover really well, and then kind of maybe pay attention to the next original song a little more. But we're an original band. First and foremost, so you're going to hear our stuff. Definitely, we're not a cover band, so you will hear us, and it's as authentic as you get. Like we don't do bells and whistles, no smoke ears and stuff like that. We don't light shows or anything like that. Maybe when we get to a certain level, we will incorporate some stage theatrics, because that also involves people into it. But right now, it's like a raw, high energy show. And gonna have a good time. We like to just, and I say it every show, like, we're here to have a good time. And we hope you have a good time too, that's really what.
Sounds like a good night. And you mentioned you played a show with Accept. When you're playing with guys on that level, what do you learn?
I mean, you learn to be on top of your shit for sure. We've been fortunate enough to open for them twice. In upstate New York in Poughkeepsie at the Chance Theater. That was our first show. And on Long Island in Patchogue, a place called Stereo Guard. And that first show was definitely for us. We had been with Bo, our bassist, for about 6 months at that point. And we had a half hour. And we were second on out of 4 bands, including Accept. And we set out to just like, let's just literally lay it all on the line. Let's play as hard as we can, as hard as I can. I'll crowd work up stuff. I'm like, I'll practice in the mirror if I do like little phrases and stuff to make sure that, because playing in front of Accept, you want to make sure that nerves don't get to you. They have such a polished live show. Like they have the coordinated like swings. They have the outfits. Obviously, their crew is top notch, and they travel all over the world. So we did not want to surrender that opportunity. So we always tried to pride ourselves on being as professional as possible. But when you get to a band like that, who's legitimately a professional touring band, it's a different level. And, they were so accommodating, but just making sure that you're always top of your shit. Like, what your stuff is, exactly what needs to be dialed in, any equipment that you need to hand to them that they need to work with. But it's a well-oiled machine. I don't think we could have messed if we tried. So like fortunate enough to do that. But just to definitely also we learned to just appreciate moments like that, because who knows how many times that'll happen in our music career, if I could say that. The hope is to play a lot of shows like that. And it's probably close to 1,000 people there. I know max cap at that venue is 950. So when Accept played, it was like sardines. So that place was maxed when they played. When we played, it was tight, but you could move through without having to like squeeze. So I think 700 people, which was we've played to and to this day most. And just getting people involved in our show, and like people were they were chanting and doing rocks and stuff like that, and they were coming up. They were paying attention to us, and that's really what's important. And we got a lot of reactions after songs. So I guess really learning to appreciate moments like that, because who knows how many times it'll happen. It's a tough business. It's not. There's definitely zero guarantees. So getting to do that once, but not, we got to do it twice, which was great. Just not taking those things for granted, but also always making sure to put your best, not just your best foot forward, but like you show the best who you are in those situations, like to show that you have a level of professionalism, and that they let us open for the second time. So like that was awesome for us. Like, so we proved that not only could we handle the music side, but also the backstage professional side of it. Like, we didn't cause any problems. We didn't cause any hiccups. We didn't take too much time. We stayed with our set time. We weren't trying to take liberties. We weren't being dicks to anybody. We were being very gracious and respect everybody, because the low man totem pole. You can't walk around like big dick on campus. So you can't do stuff like that. So just making sure you stay humble and don't step on anyone else's toes. Some people might say different, where you should be a little bit more aggressive, stuff like that. But to us, that's not going to get us any points. Like some people will work out for them, but I feel like that's the exception. Like, you should always just be professional and respectful as possible. So that one of the things we definitely learned.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good point. And, that's obviously the best one you've played. If you flip that around now, is there a gig that you would say is the worst experience you've had? And how did you deal with it?
Oh, definitely. And honestly, it's a gig we didn't even get to play. We had gone into Brooklyn for a show, a place called Purgatory. Probably should have taken that as the first sign of things to come. The only saving grace, and I'll lead the story off of this, is that we got paid in advance for it. So like, we money regardless, but we wanted to play. Originally we were supposed to go on at like 11:30. It was one of those shows with a lot of bands. We show up, and I have my Mesa 4x12 cabinet, and I have Mesa dual rectifier amp head. We're talking like 100 pounds of equipment. We walk in, I was like, oh, okay, this place looks nice. Like, oh, well, the place you guys are playing is upstairs. I was like, all right, stairs, and look. And it looked like it was out of like a movie or something. The staircase that never ends. And it's like nice and tight in the hallway. I'm like, how am I supposed to? So I lug all the stuff there. We lug all the equipment up. And we're sitting there. It's like 11 o'clock, and they're like two bands behind. We're like, oh. Like, oh, all right, we're not going to go until like 1. All right, okay, that's fine. It's 12:30, and there's still like a band and a half behind. We go to the porter. We're like, what's going on? Like, we were supposed to go a half hour ago, or an hour ago, really. And what's going? Oh, you'll get on. We promise. Then it was like 1:30, and they were still like, oh, there's actually another act, and we were just, all right, we're out of here. We got into it a little bit with some people, but we're like, listen, like, we can't play at 2:30. you told us 11:30 or 12:30, whatever you said, like, and you kept moving the goalposts. Like, we came out here, we brought all of our stuff. I'm like, this was a whole day. I'm like, some of us have work in the morning, like, so that sucked. That sucked because we just want to play. If we got to play, that would have been cool. But like that was just it's just the stairs with the equipment. I remember having a lot of adrenaline at the end of the show, so going down the stairs wasn't so bad. I remember being a little angry, a little beside myself. But yeah, so that's the flip side of the exception.
Right. Well, hopefully they're few and far between.
Yeah, luckily that has not happened since.
Yeah.
But it's one of those experiences like I feel like everyone needs to have something like that. It's a good story, and it's we look back at it, it's just funny, and then we're like, oh well, I'm like, we still got paid. That was cool.
Yeah, true. And since you started the band, what's the biggest challenge you guys have faced?
I mean, COVID was definitely a big one because we formed. I mean, initially formed. It was me and the original bassist, our buddy Andrew. It was a long trip to Atlanta for one of our buddies' bachelor parties, and he was talking. He wanted to start playing bass, and I had only picked up the guitar. I was like, well, I might just do it. I'm like, you come over and we could jam. I could show you what I know, which is very little. I'm like, I could show you some power chords and stuff if you just want to like, root notes behind me. And like, so we jammed for about a year and a half like that, just me and then we got his buddy, Jack did the artwork for the first album. He played drums with us for like half a year. And then he wanted to focus on art. So he backed out. And then we called up our boss, Justin, who's the drummer now, because he played drums in school. And he came over, jammed with us a few times. Like, you guys want to try to record some songs? We made like a little EP, little demo EP in my basement. We recorded tools. We did that. And then we got Jack involved for lead guitar. But then COVID hit. We recorded the end. And then, what happens sometimes, our buddy Andrew was moving with his fiance to Texas. So, we took a few months and we're trying to figure out like if we could make it work. And we just decided like it couldn't. So then we put out a not like a flyer, but sort of like a Facebook version of Craigslist for musicians. So I put out like some ads there for looking for a bassist. We put links to our music, and answered it, and he had actually known about the bands. He was listening to the music beforehand, which was cool. We're like, shit, we have a fan. Like, that's awesome. There's one. So he came down, he auditioned. We play a few songs off the album, and then a cover that we like to do For Whom the Bell Tolls. A nice rock and Metallica song that everybody knows. So that always gets people involved. And we played that. We played a few of the songs on the album, and we vibed pretty quickly. And we were able to get him on board. But so the biggest challenge we faced was COVID, and then also our buddy and moving. Because we were, oh man, just came out with this album. We're like, now what the hell do we do? But luckily, Bo was in the right place at the right time, and we were able to link with him, and we didn't lose much steam. We missed like a year of gigs, which stunk because that's where you cut your teeth, like you kind of get a lot more comfortable. But we had gigged a lot in 2021 and 2022, so we were able to kind of get ourselves reacclimated because it's different than rehearsing at home. Definitely. So the COVID probably the biggest challenge, and then losing the bassist. So after that.
Yeah, I get you. And if you think about the band and the future, how would you like the band to evolve? What would it be like in, say, 5 years' time?
I mean, I definitely want to get a couple more albums there. We're toying around with the idea of an EP. We're not sure because we really like the idea of the album. And maybe that's just us, digging our heels in with that old school mentality of an album, and maybe that's the did part of us, but we like that. But definitely want to have at least another album or two out there of material. Play around maybe some drop tuning. I know that's one thing Bo, our bassist, has been talking about. We have a few songs where we have like in the banks that are in drop tuning. Something I never really experimented with too much. The time I do, I have a great time. It's just like it kind of lends itself to just those big power chords, and it has that cool deep Soundgarden, like some of those Soundgarden riffs. Like, oh, now I know why they came up with the riff. I'm like, this is so much fun. This is great. And just to keep just improving on the quality, because I feel like definitely the first album, I'm very happy with it. I really love the songs on it, but I feel like we definitely made the songs more concise, and they're better for it. I think the edit process with the second album was definitely better than the first album, because this album was just that. Like, we didn't know what we were doing. We just had songs. We're like, all right, let's record these songs that we have, rather than workshopping them a little bit further and like making them a little bit more tight, a little easier to digest. So just to keep evolving, keep adding different style sounds, like I talked about the drop tuning, just another aspect of rock music, and to make sure also we just stay true ourselves and try to conform to anything else. We like to add new elements in here and there, and obviously the modern sort of rock metal sounds that maybe we don't have, but we think that kind of gives us a little bit of an advantage in the field because it helps stand out a little bit. And some people are like, it's not really what we're looking for because it's not what everything else sounds like. But then other people, wow, this is like refreshing. This is a nice throwback, which is, that's a mile. But just to keep pushing ourselves musically, because we definitely did on the second album to the first, just trying different time signatures and stuff like that. And just, but like I said, just being authentic and, always just playing music that we like, not trying to be something that we're not. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I like it. And before we dive into the last couple of questions, then, future plans in the near future that are set in stone. Anything you want to share with us?
Well, I mentioned earlier the little mini tour in Canada, which is we're very excited about. It's be able to play two big cities, Ottawa and Montreal, and the venues are cool. They're pretty big size, so and they're going to be very well attended, which is great. Which I always love to see that. And our numbers, not to Spotify again, but our numbers in Canada are actually solid in those cities. So I don't people are getting primed and ready like for come up there, which is cool to see. So we're very much looking forward to that, and we're hoping to hook up with. We've been shopping around for like a booking agent, like a manager. So if we can get those things secured, I think the shows will start getting a lot more. Be a lot easier to do that because it's a lot. That DIY mentality, the do-it-yourself sort of mentality when it comes to being in a band, especially like working day job musicians, it's even tougher. So trying to balance that and then also book all the gigs and making sure like even like lining up the interviews, it's like making sure checking with the other band members. It's like, all right, well, what are you available? Can you do this? Can you do this? It's a lot. So like you can get a manager and a booker to help us with that aspect. It would take a lot of weight off of it. So we can create on like other aspects, and we can more promotional stuff on Facebook, and media is another one of those things where like take it or leave it, but it's necessary sort of evil. You have to. Like I feel like if I have a band, I probably wouldn't have a Facebook.
Right.
But it's like one of those necessary things like that you kind of need. And but those are the types of things that I think are on the horizon for the band, probably within 6 to 12 months. So just more shows and hopefully getting on some maybe festivals next summer would be really cool. The next festival season, because like we feel like we're right on the cusp. Like if we weren't to release the album, I feel like we might have been able to jump on a few this past summer. So hopefully, a chance to do that next summer season would be huge for the band because that exposure you can't. It's hard to put a price on that exposure, especially stage you play, what event you're playing at, what bands are headlining. Like all things play a factor, and if we can get to get on those, but that's why we're looking try to get a booking agent and a manager to kind of, people who know what they're doing. Sometimes it's like you just sort of throwing crap at the wall and hoping sticks with certain, like a lot of times bookers or like bookers at the venues won't respond to like cold emails to people that they don't know or with, and I can't blame them. They probably get inundated with emails, and like so many of them are junk or like bands that aren't as serious, and like they want to bring money in, so they're not going to respond to everybody. So if we can get sort of their foot in the door in a few places, I mean that's really what it comes down to is actions, and that's it's cliche that it's not who you are, it's who you know. There's a lot of that. Who you are definitely becomes very important once you get invited to the table. Better be somebody like that's wild, or else they're gonna kick you out.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll dive into the last couple. So these are a few random odd music questions, but I'm intrigued to see your answers. So if you could see anyone from history in concert for one night only, who would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Probably, I would love to see. It's between two, so I'll give you two. I'll kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan. I would have loved to see live. His guitar sound is it's like legendary. He's a student of Hendrix, and I love just his vibe live. There's so much passion to it. He was like the king of the mouth movements playing guitar. Like where John Mayer and stuff, like people meme about him, but Stevie Ray Vaughan, like he just felt a note. And you could see he had giant hands bending the strings to the point of snapping, and like heavy, like nobody a string like him. But to be able to see that live, and then the other one would be Queen with Freddie Mercury. Would definitely be just seeing like nobody, handle the crowd better than him. Yeah, you see that in all the live, like the Live Aid thing that they did, his last performance. Just, I mean, what a performer! So like seeing him with Queen back in the day would have been awesome. And then also I would probably say Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Two very good ones there. Now here's where the odd part comes in. If you had to spend 24 hours locked in a room with any musician from history, who would it be?
Ooh, lock a room for 24 hours. My default answer would probably be James Hetfield from Metallica. Just so I could pick his brain and talk to him for 24 hours, because I could probably spend the entire 24 hours with him. I don't even know if he get a word in edgewise. Him, yeah, I think that's the no-brainer for me, just to pick his brain, because I find his life fascinating. Everything he's through, and like his upbringing, and just all the just what goes through his mind when he writes a riff, or if anything goes through his mind. And I know I've like seen interviews talk about it, and it just kind of comes to him. But just to be able to kind of like chat him up about this, and just so we choose him.
Pretty good. I wouldn't mind that myself now. And the final one. So, what song would appear on the soundtrack to your life?
Ooh, soundtrack to my life. That's a good one. Yeah, that's a really good question. People usually get stumped on this. This is a tough one. I mean, all right. So the song doesn't have to represent my entire life.
No,
It just has to be on the soundtrack. Just has to be on the soundtrack. So, it's still a tough one. Let's do. Oh man, you're killing me with this one, because it's probably going to be a song by. Probably going to be a song by Metallica. And I don't want to say Fade to Black, because that one's a little too depressing. But I feel like it would be fitting, maybe for like the last song on the soundtrack. If my soundtrack was played at the life or something at the funeral home, and I would maybe put that in the last slot. Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll do that. We'll do that for sake of time. For sake of time, because I could probably sit here for hours and think about. Yeah, we'll slot that in on the last track on the soundtrack of life.
Brilliant, brilliant. Listen, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks a million.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you, supporting us, listening to the album. I'm glad you're digging it, and giving me the opportunity to have a platform to kind of spread the word about it. Appreciate it.